For over 2,000 years, every generation has said exactly the same thing. The youth are disrespectful. They are lazy. They are feral. Why, they're the end of civilization itself. From Plato to today, the complaint never changes. So here's the real question. What if we're not watching intelligence decline? What if we're watching consciousness decode itself differently? Stay with me. It sounds like a simple observation, but believe me, it changes everything. Because everyone laughs at Generation Alpha. Brain rot, skibbity, attention spans destroyed. They're an easy joke walking around with broccoli on their head and slang that makes absolutely no sense because the people who are speaking it themselves don't comprehend what they're saying because they're trying to fit in with a trend. But what if we're mistaking a new operating system for a broken one? Comprehend that destruction always comes before reconstruction, and not just in civilizations, but minds as well. I mean, if you listen to modern music, most Gen Xers hear one thing: the same beat, the same flow, the same bass, the same song, for 30 tracks straight, in 2.5-minute increments. To them that is pure noise, but what if that's because they've been listening to it with the wrong decoder? Imagine you grew up seeing the entire rainbow, every color, every shade, every subtle difference. That's how many of us 80s jits experienced music, because every producer had their own fingerprint. You could spot the swing, you knew where that snare was, that mix down. You didn't need a tag to tell you who made that beat. You could feel it. Every artist built their own world. They had their own slang, they had their own flows. Now imagine compressing that rainbow with its varieties and range. So instead of going from red to violet, you only had from red to orange. The end. To the outsider, not raised within, it all looks the same. There is very little difference in that tiny slice. But to somebody who was born swimming in these currents, there are thousands of distinctions. Microshifts, tiny variations, entire landscapes invisible to everybody else. What if that's what Generation Alpha is actually hearing? And what sounds repetitive to us may feel like tectonic plates moving beneath their feet. Now, let's consider their language. Many people say that their slang makes no sense, maybe. Or maybe it's not trying to. Maybe it's meta-communication, where memes aren't dictionaries, they're shared experiences. A sound, an image, a 5-second reference. Nobody defines it, but everybody understands it. Until tomorrow, then the culture begins again. Meaning has become fluid, compressed, hypercontextual, non-centralized. Not better, not worse, different. Now here's where it gets interesting, because every generation is shaped by the technology it grows up with. Gen X explored the world physically, Alpha digitally. Let me take you on a trip back to Blockbuster. Compare that to Netflix. Now when you walked in to get your VHS and your first choice was gone, you wandered the aisles. You found hidden gems. You judged films by strange cover art and what may be there within. You bumped into people you'd never met, maybe even made new friends. Half of the experience was the discovery. That was the thrill for us. We met the world. Now the world comes to them. So they have infinite choice, instant access, no wandering, no friction, no accidental discoveries. The world has become searchable and curated at their fingertips. That isn't a moral judgment. It's a different environment. And different environments produce the minds that thrive within them. And here's the irony. Older generations often accuse the younger of conformity and lack of respect. And yet, every generation rebels and respects, but to different things. My generation chased status on the street. They, online. Different arenas, exactly the same human instinct. Look, crime falls, anxiety rises, connections expand, and yet loneliness grows. We have more information than ever, but far less certainty. Does that sound like a broken generation? Or a civilization learning to process a completely different reality? One that was there all along, but veiled. So here's the question: is technology allowing us to see, or is it augmenting our vision? Or is there a third option that we have not even considered yet? So let's have this conversation. Because I'm not saying that Generation Alpha is superior or X knows what time it is. No, every generation has their strengths, weaknesses, and blind spots. Us 80s jits, we learned through resilience and scarcity because nobody gave an F about us. Alpha is learning adaptation through overload, which is why I predict a lot of them are going to disconnect and go back to the analog way of doing things. Now, both of these options come with costs, and both of them create gifts. The real battle was never amongst generations. It's between awareness and unconsciousness, between reacting and responding, because beneath every single trend, every meme, every algorithm, every engineered outrage and all the rest of this mess, there is still the same old human mind that is old as the hills, asking identical questions from back when. Who am I? Why am I here? What is worth paying attention to? You see, technology changes, but the questions, they never do. Neither does the questioner. So maybe next time you hear brain rot and have a triggered response in your head, pause. Ask yourself something else. Are they actually thinking less? Or are they simply decoding reality through filters that weren't available for us? Because history suggests something uncomfortable. Every older generation eventually mistakes a new language for the collapse of intelligence. And if there's one thing history has proven, is that it's been wrong before. If you really want to understand where this idea goes next, read the article that I've pinned in the comments about the difference between boomers, Gen X, and millennials. That's what got me thinking about alpha and what's actually been going on for all of these generations, because the human machine is identical, yet it's the software inside their heads. This is what I change for my clients 10 times out of 10. And this is what got me thinking, because obviously there is mass design engineering going on across this planet, and it's based on conflict and division. And yet, if we look beyond that, if we're willing to check our own ignorance and projections and comprehend that we interact with the figments of our imagination, then something very interesting happens. Something which is often mistaken for madness. Reality starts to seem like a dream that we project and then forget that we are sleepwalking within. Now, I know that if you made it this far, you may think that I've been starting the story backwards or in the middle, but that's really, really fitting, because the mind, much like time, never moves in straight lines, and neither do dreams, which is a cryptic hint into something we're going to be examining in a bit. Till we meet again.